Welcome to the Future of Political Consulting, a podcast by the American Association of Political Consultants. In today's episode, we step back from day-to-day tactics to examine the political consulting industry itself, how it's evolved, how it's structured, and what the data suggests about where it's headed. Raghu Devaguptapu, partner at TKO Political and a member of the AAPC board, is joined by Jordan Lieberman, CEO of Powers Interactive, who has been analyzing the consulting landscape across growth, consolidation, party balance, and career paths. Let's get into it.
Hey, everybody, this is Raghu Devaguptapu. I'm the managing partner at TKO, a Democratic ad agency, and a proud board member of the AAPC. I'm excited to be here today with Jordan Lieberman, who has had a unique career and a bunch of roles in the industry and runs a pretty damn big company right now. So I want to kick it to Jordan to just start off. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the shop and how you kind of got into
Sure. Well, I've been with Powers Interactive for several years, but been basically doing the exact same thing for about 16, which is voter-targeted digital advertising across the political spectrum. We do this for everyone. We've been doing this for a very long time. We focus on our experience and really the accountability of moving all these electrons really quick. So been doing this for a long time. Before that, ran Campaigns and Elections magazine. Ran campaigns mostly in the Northeast. Lost most of them, and then and the data shows that actually it's better for your career. We'll get to that. And before that, college in the Northeast too, also, which is not so good for your political career, which we can talk about too.
So you had let's actually get into some of your career background for a second. So in the world of digital targeting, I mean, the advances that we've seen from 2016. 2014 to now are massive. And I don't sit in a pitch where I don't sit with a prospective client where I don't say what we did 4 years ago doesn't work anymore.
It's not only more technically capable, but also more regulated. So we can do so much more than we can't than we're legally allowed to do, or we're technically capable, that we the kind of the tactics allow. And now it's a matter of kind of pulling back and saying, well, we could do this if we were allowed to, but we can't. And you name it. And it used to be, your imagination and the budget is kind of limits. Now it's a little bit more of the law or, what's just right or wrong.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Let's dive back a little bit broader to, let's just get into some industry stuff.
Sure.
So a little bit about Powers Interactive. You have a division that works with both sides of the aisle, right?
Yeah, we're the pipes. We're the pipes.
Yeah. So you guys are you see everything, and I think that for the purposes of a conversation for our membership, I think I'm really excited to do this because you are uniquely situated to sort of talk about how the parties, each of them, are operating and sort of stuff within and outside of digital. And so why don't we delve into that some? So, I mean, after analyzing the industry and seeing where it is today and possibly where it's headed, if you were a young operative again, just getting back up in the industry, are there any decisions that you'd make at that age, that you didn't make or that you would do again if you were to seek a career in political consulting? Which I don't think any of us ever seek a career in political consulting, right?
Nobody does. I wrote a whole column about how nobody signs up and wants to do TKO or Powers Interactive when you're 20 or 22. This is what happened to you after a cycle of running campaigns in the D trip or DGA and the whole thing. And similar for me. The most important thing that I wish I had done at 18, at 22, at 25 is network my ass off. That is the most important skill you can have. It's not where you went to college, although your college helped a great deal statistically. It is a little bit of it's not where you grew up because everyone leaves. But there's only, you have to network your ass off and settle in one of the states politically that is active. So there's about 12 states in America that have their act together in terms of state parties that are functional and training and doing all the things that you and I learned how to do kind of in field space. 38 states in America, more or less, are kind of zombie states in terms of political consulting.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And that, you know, and right, like it's funny. I will just say, I came up in Wisconsin, as you know, and
Sure.
when I was coming up in the industry as a manager and as an operative, every major party committee was in Wisconsin. It was a battleground, so everything
Yeah.
was there, right? And so
Hmm.
working in an environment that had a lot of money and a lot of
Yes.
professional political campaigns being run, I certainly think
Right.
helped my development in an early age.
It's Wisconsin, and then states that have off-year elections like New Jersey, Virginia. I'm from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Louisiana export the best political consultants. The problem with Wisconsin, and I don't know if you're from Wisconsin or you kind of came up there originally, but
Yeah.
you're raising great political talent, but they leave because the consulting class, kind of the senior, the graybeards, whatever you want to call them, don't have the capacity to keep you, Raghu, in state. You got to leave, and that it varies by state. So in Georgia, kind of the opposite is the case, where there has been so much money flooding the state for the last 5-6 years. There's the ability you can stay in the state and be an operative for much longer.
Yeah, that's totally
Yeah.
right. And I had to leave. I
Right.
felt like I had to jump steps. I needed to
Me
leave
too.
to get more
Yeah,
experience. Yeah.
exactly it. Yeah, you're a classic story.
So from when you first started well, actually, but probably from when you were running C&E,
Yeah.
what's the proliferation of political consulting been like for you? Like from your perspective?
Like, well, it's funny because I mean I think I went to 17 consecutive polys, probably saw you at every one of them, and I mean the shape and the look and the feel of the polys events themselves have changed dramatically since I started C&E. I mean, I remember a couple hundred people hanging out in Napa. Different world now. So I think it's democratized in terms of the labor pool and the consulting space, but at the same time, it's hollowed out a little bit in terms of the middle class. The revenue concentration is you and I are both on the right side of it. There's a whole lot of people, 90 something like 97%, or no, sorry, 89, 90% of political professionals are not able to kind of build a full-time life doing this because just they're not part of that slipstream. So it's changed a little bit in the middle class. Is a little more hollow than it was when we started. I think the other thing that you've seen change is the hollowing out of kind of the mentor class. You and I both had rabbis everywhere. They could just tell us what to do, and we've got a few that overlap. And I'm not sure if today you could do that. I'm reluctant to say that post-COVID, especially, but that's not just COVID. No, like that whole world of hey, can I have a summer internship, or can I do this? Can I do this at 23? You don't have to pay me a lot of money, but I just want to earn enough to pay for my rent in Arlington. Like that whole part of the political professional industry is really hollowed out.
Yeah. I want to explore, as you talk about sort of the hollowing out of the middle class political consultant. Can you get into that a little bit?
So one of the reasons I think for the state parties and the kind of the states hollowing out in terms of being mentors is that McCain-Feingold or actually really Citizens United, I think, hollowed out some of the money flowing to these state parties that would fund these 22-year-olds knocking on doors and being the field director for a county. Like that is not what it used to be, and therefore the whole political consulting class has lost its feeder. Field directors become campaign managers. Campaign managers become party operatives. Party operatives become consultants, and that whole feeder is in danger of getting hollowed out.
I think you're right. Now, do you, in the difference between the Dem side and the R side, with Democrats, one of the things that we see is we are not able to, because of, well, in part with the inability to use soft money in space through the party structure, the training programs are not as grand. And we have a retention problem of keeping operatives cycle from unemployment back to cycle, right? And so a lot of us have tried different things to try to have private fixes to this, but none of it is going to add up to solving problems. So we don't have finance directors, for instance, in Democratic politics anymore.
You've got
the same thing on the Republican side.
The first thing I'll say is, as one of the few guys that gets to see it all, is that you're all the same. Like there are specific problems endemic to each party. Since we're talking about Democratic first, I think the first thing you'll see is I see a lot more humans that are on payroll on the FEC records, of course, because the state parties are hiring more, for GOTV and things like that. There's about 350,000 people that we can find in the FEC rolls over the last 20 years. And it's definitely not 50-50. There's a lot more Democrats in there. And that makes sense. But I think the bigger problem, is training organizations, and Republicans have absolutely, clobbered Democrats in terms of being able to build an infrastructure that is lasting. And that's called Leadership Institute. There's nothing like it on the Democratic side. NOI and some of the others, while really noble and done good work, they are not building kind of the infrastructure that you needed to kind of create that conveyor belt of from cradle to grave. And Leadership Institute has, was it like 40 years or 50, whatever the number is, it's like 40 years of history of multi-generational, staffing conveyor belt that no matter where the Democrats go, they're starting today from square. And I've looked at, there's NOI, there's Democratic Trading Institute, there's a few others, and none of them have a Democratic gain, haven't created that institutional critical mass yet.
Yeah. And what's the name of the one on the GOP side called?
Leadership Institute. If I could give advice to a Democrat who is looking at this, is go sneak in there and look what they're doing. They've done an incredible job, and it's not the kind of thing you fix in a week.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So on the consulting firm side, how many more firms are there now than there were back in the day? I will actually preface this question, I think, and an opportunity to use Rich as an example. Our shared mentor or one of our shared mentors,
yes,
Rich Lackman, he once told me that when he was first a male consultant, he did I don't know if the number was 84 or 130 congressional races, because he was one of 3 male consultants that existed.
Yeah. But it's so the money's gone up, but also the opportunities have gone up. So there are more people kind of at the very tip, like Richard Schlackman has always been. Are there more today than there were 20 years ago? Yes. But I don't think they're in the kind of the generalist direct mail the world. They're much more in party infrastructure, regulation, digital. I don't think that, from your point of view, direct mail, I don't think that the number of direct mail vendors has exploded over the last 20 years. I could be wrong, but I think it's growing. It's growing. You have competitors every year, but it's not like digital or analytics or things that are high dollar, high growth, and high turnover. That's where all the bodies are going right now. So there's more, but they're specialists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That infrastructure wasn't there 20 years ago, not the same way.
And to your point about sort of the hollowing or the loss of the middle class political consultant, that would be just a state guy that stayed in the state and did races. Do you see more? Do you think that more of the shops are like mine, bigger with multiple partners, or do you think that there's still a bunch of solo consultants out there that can operate?
I'd say that there's a lot of, there's every flavor of shop, right? And I think you've definitely figured out what works for you. Not everyone's going to, be your size. But what I will say is that there's been in that hollowing out, the number of political professionals who are based in DC, in the DC area, has about doubled in 20 years. So that whole point of everyone's leaving the state capital to be like the biggest guy in every state. And, I grew up in New Jersey. So Ed Traz and Larry Weitzner on the Republican side run the freaking state. But the opportunity for 3, 4, 5 more guys really is much harder. Chris Russell's a good example. He's elbowed his way up in New Jersey Republican direct mail, but it is a hard thing to do. And it would have been much easier for someone like Chris to move to DC. I think there's just more opportunity. But overall, more people in DC. Are there bigger are the bigger shops kicking the butts of the smaller shops? I don't think so. I think it's everyone's got a different fit, and clients want a different thing. Some people want that that one-to-one boutique thing, and other people want a factory.
Yeah, that makes sense. I live in Chevy Chase, Maryland, right, just across the DC line, and
there you go.
It's where all the media consultants go to die. Is where I live with a bunch of others.
I lived there too up until last year. I'm with you.
What surprised you? Well, actually, do you think careers are getting longer or more cyclical? Do you think we're having more turnover? Or do you think there's more stability in the industry now versus earlier?
Yeah, that's I think the problem with that kind of middle class hollowing out is your career and my career are perfectly stable. You are not going to be looking for a job in the next 18 months. I promise you. I'll be okay. the people that are trying to get in today and get that first set of traction, be direct mail, digital, that is much harder than ever before. The turnover rate, turnover rate for a digital person is less than 2 years. So if you think about that, how in the world are they ever going to get that experience and that traction to see a full cycle go through, make it through from top to end? Much harder today than ever before. And it's that hollowing out, it's the money, it's the mentorship programs. It's actually not the money, in my opinion. Like, there's always going to be kids that can be supported by their parents if they can't make a job for a year or two, make it up for a year or two. But it's more like, I don't know who to call if I had a friend that was trying to get into business today. When I started it, when we started, but in the 90s, I remember I wrote letters to get an internship. I typed out a letter and I'd come back and I'd have an internship. I'm not sure if that happens today.
I don't think it does. I mean,
right.
I think part of the problem is everybody's trying to keep overhead down, and
right.
Free internships don't feel appropriate. And so I think a lot of the problem is if you're unwilling to pay, then you're unwilling to give somebody an opportunity.
And it's kind of good for labor, but bad for it. The reality is, like, I have, in my shop, there is a job that is specifically was outlined for interns for a couple of years, and our engineers built something, and it is automated. There is AI behind it. It runs. That internship position is eliminated, not because I don't want to be a mentor. I'd love to be a mentor, but I literally don't have I don't have the need to do that job anymore. And that's going to be tough for a whole lot of people who are finishing college right now.
Yeah. We just go stay on mentorship for a second. I realize that a lot of the mentoring that I do has ended up being with the more established up and coming operative that's ready to take the next step, to either be a consultant or run a committee or take a senior job somewhere.
Yeah.
Is where a lot of my mentoring gets done. And we didn't do a lot of work. We felt on mentoring of younger operatives who are just trying to get the barrier of entry.
Right.
In.
Right. That is hard. That part of your career, my career, sucked. I slept on couches and ate a lot of shitty food. But even that pathway is harder today. And you're right. I mean, it benefits your career to mentor or network with people at a more advanced degree. But that's the problem, is that your best bet for political consultants trying to get into the business is to know you, and that maybe the industry is a little more calcified than it used to be, and that might be part of it. There's much less free flowing of business. It's much more tribal than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. Starting from when you first started doing this, and now here we are almost 20 years later, what surprised you about the industry as a whole when you first got in versus now? What's surprising you about the industry?
So I remember in the polys of it's probably 2004, 2005 in Napa, I felt like I was walking into a high school reunion. I'm sure you were there. And there was a whole lot of intimidating people that all knew each other and had all traded millions of dollars. And it's very intimidating. I think today, when you walk into the polys, it feels like a carnival, like in a good way. And it feels like this is a healthy industry, finding the right talent and mentoring the right people. And there's a good mix of small business and big business. And I think that is a good feel, but I am surprised that there are still that class of people who are just getting into business that are really struggling. And you can see it in the numbers. So there's a disconnect there. But also, the actual organization itself has become more diversified and frankly, better, better model for what the industry needs.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
What sectors are you seeing right now that show the biggest increase of people in revenue?
So, easy for me to say digital. Everyone's making digital, right? But there's a couple places that are not easy to find. Compliance, the pipes, anything where you're connecting dollars to media and making it more efficient, that is a job that will exist. Anything that you are helping campaigns understand or file new regulations in different states, anything like that, you've got a job for life. The places where you should be worried are places that obviously that are going to be automated. So, linear TV buying at the top of the list once you've got engineering done. Engineering, if you're in engineering, it's a tough place to be because the code writes itself down. Like all this research that I've been doing to look at all these political professionals, I didn't write code. I copied and pasted code from ChatGPT. Like it's not, but that means the guy that actually wrote the code is going to have a problem. So I think the growth you're going to see is a combination of AI and kind of encroachment, but also like regulations and technology. Like I don't think there's going to be a bumper crop of things that we used to do in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Field, direct mail, production. I think you're going to be fine because everyone's producing TikTok ads. So like that skill set is still out there and we're still activating it. But I think the line I use is like field is like Yiddish. Like if we're not exercising it all the time, that will not be around in a generation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's funny, even on the production side, though, I don't think a lot of agencies are built to be able to sustain producing small content for campaigns, right? And so
and that's
the model needs to change where campaigns are doing more of that work themselves. And so I think you need to hire a videographer / editor on the campaign payroll to be able to churn content that an agency probably too expensive to do for you.
Yeah, and what you're going to see is it's going to dramatically change the FEC data. It's going to look like this giant pool of people entered the FEC world, but the reality is they've always been there. They've just been under the FEC. They've been under the agency, so you never see them. But yeah, I mean, I think the more creative and not human things are going to be just fine. We're producing a video spot right now for Powers Interactive for the price of one film spot. I'm producing 3, 4, 5 non-film spots, and I'm really happy with it. And I think that's coming. So there's a creative person still doing it, but some of that infrastructure is going to change.
Yeah, that's right. So are you seeing more specialists or generalists in today's world of practice versus the past?
Sure. I think that the world of generalists is plateaued at best. The idea of this high stature political professional walking in to a meeting and all the other vendors kind of agreeing is probably that. I think that's past us. I think it's much more of a collaborative experience versus a general consultant led.
Yeah, I agree. That's what we see too, and I think it's better that way. More gone are the days where some big dog sits in the room and shots.
Doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. So staying with growth for a second, do you think that it's technology or compliance or media fragmentation that's like really driving sort of the direction that we're going in the industry?
Yes, right. I think media fragmentation is the thing that scrambled everything, right? There's that is the thing that blew up audience targeting is fragmentation. If we didn't need to target if I could reach everyone on ADC. That's got to be the first thing, that's kind of leading the thinking here, right? Like I think all the tools
anymore, right?
All those tools are trying to reach a tiny little fragment instead of, and I think what you're going to see is some really ugly math when it comes to broadcast TV and radio. Like what do, and not in terms of buying, but in terms of efficiency. And you start thinking about what's the efficiency of an AM radio. Like, I don't know about your radio, but like I have a 3-year-old car down the street parked. It's still on the factory settings for the terrestrial radio. If someone said, go tune it to, 970 AM radio, I don't think I would know how to do it.
Yeah. I don't know when the last time I used to listen to a little bit of like sports radio, but I don't.
But that's so that whole idea about high reach tactics like linear or radio, it's got to be a more diversified conversation.
Yeah, I think it's made campaigns more expensive because there is let's use broadcast as the example in a world where streaming has become increasingly dominant. We have a portion of the electorate that we know we can reach on broadcast, but it's smaller. It's not a reach medium anymore. It's actually a
right. It's a niche.
It's a frequency medium, But
yes, and I think that linear lasts longer because at least you can do those weird channels and stuff, But the whole idea about the evening news, buying on the evening news or whatever it is, someone's going to be the last guy to turn off the lights on that. And, I mean, I love watching, and I don't know if you read it on the right, but Michael Beach's cross-screen media research reports are fantastic when they talk about what year will broadcast die. And there's a year.
Yeah. So let's switch again. I just think that for our membership particularly, you're in such a unique position. Let's talk a little bit about party balance.
Okay.
So do you think we're in a two-sided marketplace? Do you think that D's and R's are sort of the class of consultants is about equal in terms of like size? Like, do they have as many consultants as we do?
My favorite question. You're all the same. Start with that. You're all the same. You all put on, one stock at a time, whatever. There are slight cultural differences, but who's funnier, who's smarter, who's nicer, you're all the same. Like, and there's every time I see anyone of any party say, I've seen the other guy's stuff and they're kicking our butt, that is a lie. like I get it. Like, I get what you're doing, but it's not a thing. Republicans have done a better job of creating high centrality networks of consultants. And what I mean by that is, if you went through a training organization, or you belong to a church group, or you belong to any group, you are tight. And you can see this in these network maps that I've produced, and I'll start putting them on LinkedIn and Substack soon. But Republicans particularly they're tight. Like when you map this visually, they overlap really closely. They travel as herds, they travel as packs, they're very tight cohorts. They don't let a lot of people in and out. That said, they're billing the same, they're thinking the same. They got kids, you got kids. Like they're watching football. Democrats tend to have a lower centrality. They spread out more. So the best example of that in real life is the college Democrats and the college Republicans. College Republicans stick together right after college. They all follow a very similar career path. They all do essentially the same thing right after school. College Democrats are almost untrackable. You see they list college Democrats as on their resume, and then in terms of where they go thereafter, it's cool that they're getting this diverse experience and then bringing it back to the party. But the reality is that doesn't really help their careers if they spread out so fast that they can't actually help each other. They fly the coop much faster and further.
Mm-hmm.
So, Leadership Institute, there's no Democratic Leadership Institute network. The professional network that comes with being a BYU grad is really not the same. There's not a lot of networks like that on the Democratic side. You've got Wisconsin, like you've got giant state schools, and obviously the majority are slightly left, right of center, and you've got, high volume, low centrality, I guess. That's the difference.
And do you think, from the operative now to the consulting side, do you think like firm size, longevity, revenue concentration are both parties sort of performing similarly or differently?
Yeah, it's really hard. It's the revenue concentration and the long term. That stuff's a lot harder to measure than you'd think. So you've got GMMB screwing up everyone's average. You've got and then on the right, you've got Jeff Rowe and Axiom Strategies broken into a whole bunch of different companies. So it's really hard to track. You've got vendors and sub-vendors, and you've got different names and DBAs, and it's really hard to apples at the top and the high dollar stuff. But I think overall, everyone's. I don't think there's a big financial difference. There's different styles in terms of billing and markup and things like that. But that whole idea about the Republicans ripping everyone off and the Democrats do it just right, or vice versa, nah. All the same.
One of the things that I've noticed about the Republican side of late is it seems like that they've been more forward stepping in terms of marrying firms together for the possibility of a sale, right? Like I see a lot more merging on the R side, the D side about more full service.
Yeah, I mean, you do see, but I think you can see that in education history is that Republicans have more business school experience. They've got, business school experience. You've got kind of that manager mentality or the entrepreneur mentality a little bit stronger. Democrats don't sell as much, and they don't have, MBAs mathematically. I mean, I'm sure you're great at business, but just mathematically speaking, the are more, I think, more business degrees on the right, and I think that's what you're seeing. I don't think that Republican businesses are more valuable or anything like that. It's just that that's where their head is.
Yeah.
So
pausing on that, I'm thinking about it for a second.
Yeah.
So between the R's and D's, how much of the political business market do you think is controlled by the top 5-10% of the firms?
Yeah. 10% of firms control almost all the money. When I say firms, there's like 21,000 firms that you see over and over again in the FEC data, but I'm not talking about the State House data. That's a whole separate ecosystem that's actually got more disbursement volume than the federal system, of course. So apples to apples, it's messier, it's bigger. But just looking at federal, it's like 21,000 or so, like repeat their TKO type businesses over and over again. And of those, about 10% are getting almost all the money.
Yeah.
But I do, I don't want to be an apologist for the well-funded political consultant, but I will say that just because all the money's going to GMMB, there's not Mr. GMMB making $1 billion. There's a whole lot of people making all that money. So it's not, I don't want it to sound unfair in the sense that like someone's getting rich and someone isn't. Like this is just creating a lot of jobs.
I agree. Look, I mean, we at our largest, I mean, a couple cycles ago, when there was like competitive U.S. Senate races in the country, I think we were in 5 of them between the major IE side or the hard side. We were in 5 of them.
Right.
So
Exactly.
And we hired a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's not going to change.
Yeah. Do you think that's going to change, or actually, is it a change from like cycles ago to where you think it's headed?
I mean, if you take those all those trend lines that I wrote and you extend it out, there's more concentration, not less. There's more hollowing out, not less. But that's kind of in the absence of change in policy, by the AAPC and kind of just the media environment overall. With no change, the middle class of political consulting gets thinner. With no change, the donor class gets thinner and more stratified. One of the things I found that I haven't written about yet, but probably will soon, is that the number of repeat donors fell off a cliff in January 2021, and it has not come back. And what that means is another kind of piece of evidence that civic decline.
Both
parties happened simultaneously. Democrats had a higher, started slightly higher, but both fell exactly the same. Essentially the week that Biden was inaugurated. I'm not sure, you can read into it a million different things, but I will tell you that the percent of repeat donors in January 2021 fell off a cliff, has not come back. It's about half what it used to be. And it will, I don't think it changes campaign funding overall. It hasn't, because there's big donors making it up the difference. But what you see is that kind of hollowing out of that kind of casual political professional or casual political donor. It's not something that's good for America.
Yeah. Well, I do think, with the Supreme Court looking at the Joint Fundraising Committee 441 stuff right now too, I think that we're going to dramatically see a change in how these campaigns are going to be funded too, right? Like, because the Democratic advantage of dollars to candidate is going to be erased.
Yeah.
What that Supreme Court is.
It's going to be massive when you look at it kind of at the micro level. If you look at specific races, things just run away for sure. But I posted something on LinkedIn yesterday that if you zoom out, it's pretty much the exact same breakdown of when the money arrives month to month, going back 20 years. But it's going to continue to grow, and it is. I don't want to say recession proof, but it's pretty close. And even when we have recessions in America, political spending has essentially been unaffected. The only time political spending has really gone down, I think, was the 2024 presidential.
Do you think that as an industry we're becoming more technical or more creative? And then let's just move to some other topics.
I hope so, man. The two things that matter to me and you, right? Technical, yes, you have to be. The idea about walking into a room and talking about something you read about, from the responsive chord, that doesn't work anymore. Like, you have to actually understand how the ad gets to the person at the end. And that was a lot more complicated than ever before. You got to learn what a DSP is. You got to learn what an SSP is. That's not something that happened 10 years ago. So it's much more complicated from a technical point of view. But I also think there's a liberation that comes with AI. And the liberation is that you can go design 10 pieces of mail or 10 video creatives for the price of one. And it gets you get to be more creative, and you get to do 10 times as many creatives. And you just have to learn how to adapt to that technology. But I think it's going to be a golden age for creatives in politics.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a great perspective. When I was a party committee political director, I used to joke that I had to use the word legal vet more than I ever got to use the word vote in my day, right? And I became a media consultant instead of a mail consultant, in part because I didn't want to deal with all the targeting, right? I was like broad messaging,
just
making moving pictures, and now turns out half my day is spent trying to is working with a digital team about how are we slicing and dicing this electorate and what platform.
It's fascinating. It's been fascinating to watch because I spent a year working in data and understanding like where is the supply and where's the demand, and it's not what you'd expect until you're in there and you start seeing when someone says, "Hey, I want all this data, but I don't want to pay for it." Like, what are we gonna do about it? And it's like there's the textbook case, and then there's like living it, which what you do and I do every day.
Jordan, you're at this point in your career where you're not just a political consultant, right? I think you've become a thought leader, frankly, for both parties, especially in the space that you live in right now. Right? You're doing a lot of writing, you're doing a lot of data research, you're Substack, you're doing a lot of stuff. So let's talk a little bit about the future as you see it, for a few minutes. Does the data, and as you see the industry, do you suggest that barriers of entry are like rising or falling? And I guess let's take it. Let's talk a little bit about the operative space. Let's talk a little bit about the consulting space. I think.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest barrier to entry out there, Raghu. Like the idea about the internship and then the job, that whole conveyor belt is not good, and part of it is the retirements are down. I think the job market isn't as healthy at that middle upper level because there's not that space that's being built because of that revenue concentration. So I think it's much harder than ever before to be a consultant. If you can get in, the things you want to look for are have legal expertise or technical expertise, but absolutely focus on a career path that will be here in 10, 20, 30 years.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that we're going to increasingly see more short-term campaign gigs from people, or do you think that we may find ways to create longevity within the industry again in both classes, operative?
I would like there to be more longevity in the industry, right? That would be really great for everyone. If you look at the data, this is just the FEC people in the FEC who have been gone through there, so you get a check from the campaign in the last 3 months. But it's a way to measure campaign staff's durability when they're on the campaign, and the duration that a person is employed by the campaign has consistently fallen. So 10, 20, 30 years ago, you'd be on that campaign for many more months than you would today. The other thing that's interesting is the time of unemployment that you can measure when an operative kind of disappears from payrolls and then comes back on has gotten a little bit longer, but more importantly, in certain states is virtually impossible. If you're in Wisconsin today and you want to be an operative, there is no paycheck from December to February. Like, what do you want to do about it? And that has gotten a little bit harder than in the past.
Yeah, we started a fellowship program for young operatives where we just put them on our payroll and got a bunch of firms to buy in with us, so we could try to train them and give them jobs as we go. That was our little piece of the puzzle, but it's clearly a problem. Do you to put partisan hack aside, but as a political practitioner, at least from my perspective, it does trouble me for both parties that, as a student of the industry, that I feel like we're not propagating our own industry as well as we probably could.
I think that we have a responsibility to make sure that civic life doesn't get hollowed out. I would love to see, political consultants fund teaching the Constitution or teaching something, something just about how to vote in class, because there's lots of evidence mounting that I won't call it the middle class, but that casual political consultant pleasure is disappearing. And when you've got kind of calcification of roles, it's really hard to talk to each other.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. What do you think? So what do you think more of? Let's take this two-pronged question. One, like I just talked to you a little bit about like what we're trying to do on our end. What more do you think consultants can do teaching classes? Like what would you like to see from our class? And then let's talk about the AAPC, and is there a role you think the AAPC could play in?
Well, I mean, everyone has a little part in making sure that you mentor and you find people in their 20s right now who want this career path and showing them there is a direction. I've been trying to find people on LinkedIn and I do things like that, but it is a bigger problem that you and I are going to solve right now. And I think the APC should be ground zero for making this a welcoming place, for people that are finishing college. Because if we don't, I think we're going to have a pipeline problem, and then we have a civic problem. And then if you have a civic problem, maybe all kinds of bad things happen. So there's nobody better than the APC at organizing this. I don't think we've done enough to show the path right now that you and I both had. I mean, I tell everyone I knew. My first day of Campaigns and Elections magazine, I called Richard Schlackman. It was spring of 2004, and I said, "Rich, what do I do?" And I still do that all the time. But I'm not sure if there's enough people that know how to do that today.
Yeah. It's an opportunity to plug the AAPC Foundation that's doing a ton of work with AI technology and legislation in states to make sure that we're not getting overregulated or underregulated, and making sure that we have the ability to continue to do what we do.
Yeah, it's not, to me, it's not the regulation, it's the thoughtless regulation or the unfair regulation and the lack of consistency. So, when you ask a political professional what it's like doing work in the state of Washington right now with sub-vendor reporting, just it makes it really hard to do your job, so.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm going to change topics here. We have about 10 minutes. Let's actually get outside of this nitty gritty of this stuff, and let's actually do some shout outs for you. So tell us a little bit about, as you got started, who've been influential for your career, what some of the best advice you got, and what some of the best advice you impart.
Oh, I love the shout out part. So my shout outs go to both sides. The first person I called in January 1999 was Larry Weitzner. He's a Republican consultant in New Jersey. He was doing a project that interested me, and I said, "I want to get to know you." And I called him, and I got an internship 3 months later. And I don't know, good example, I don't know if that happens today. Rich has been my rabbi for 20 plus years now, Richard Schlackman. And man, I think one of the things that I've been able to do that I highly recommend is finding a rabbi from every tribe. And what I mean by that is there's, depending on how you look at it, a dozen different tribes in political consulting. And I don't mean bipartisanship, a little bit, but it's more than that. It's your background, it's your beliefs. And finding a rabbi or someone you trust intimately at each level, I think is a very important thing. And I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah. That's good advice. And did any advice that has stuck with you that Larry or Rich or somebody's given you over the years that you still sort of sit with?
Larry was really good. It's always been really good at kind of the no look pass. You just see Larry's work after it's been done. Larry was here. There's a bit of that. And Rich is will talk to anyone and be anyone's mentor. And it's been so nice to see. I see him doing it with other people. I think where he excels is always, he's done a really good job of thinking strategically, where I've always thought tactically I run a digital shop, tactic. But when I talk to Rich, it's bringing it back to strategy. And he doesn't believe in cookie cutter approaches and this and that, a lot of things that other political consultants say. But, having that generation of people that are starting to retire, Becky Donatelli, another one, for example, knowing how they've operated really does help me, not just in tactics, but in managing a team.
I think you kind of answered the advice you got and advice you gave sort of in one fell swoop, right? Which is you got a lot of rabbis that gave you good advice, and you're telling
That's
people
it.
the same
That's
thing.
it. I mean, I did it. That's, I mean,
Well played.
I never worked on a presidential campaign, never worked at a party committee, never did a whole lot of the things that you're supposed to do, but I found great rabbis. And like, that is such an important skill now more than ever.
And you are increasingly getting into some projects. You were talking about where we come from. You alluded to it earlier. Tell me a little bit about some of the project work that you're doing right now that's taking your time.
Yeah. So my day job, I am CEO of Powers Interactive, and we do, digital activation for a whole lot of people. One of the things we're not going to talk about client lists, so we don't do clients, but we're active in all of the country and primaries and things like that. And we're working with a lot of our mutual friends, but it does suck around election day where I can't congratulate my clients. We don't do it. But that's gone well. But, in terms of, when I'm not doing that, I'm spending a lot of time building business intelligence for our own company, but in that byproduct is the stuff I'm writing. So the stuff I'm writing is things like, we talked a little about the life of the campaign manager. I'm looking a little bit more at, the life of this low dollar fundraiser, because I think they're going to have a major problem in the next year or two when that idea about the repeat low dollar fundraiser is going away, and now it's just high dollar repeat donors and low dollar repeat donors. There's a whole vertical of low dollar turn that is going to have to reinvent itself. And looking at how much money are they not going to be making in the next couple cycles, what's going to happen? That's, to me, that's really interesting. That's what I do when I can't sleep at 2 a.m.
And so, but tell me more about the college analysis you've been doing.
Oh yeah, the college one. So I haven't released it. I'm not sure if I will or how, but the most interesting thing I found was that there's a difference in career success that is directly related or correlated to the partisanship of the school. So what I mean by that is Brown or Liberty University produce great operatives. They do, left, right, whatever you name it, great. They get everywhere. But if you look at the folks that are in long-term vendor, durable careers, making, it's not even the money; it's just durable long-term careers. Those are people that went to school at places that have people that don't look and sound like you. So at the top of that list is University of Wisconsin, Raghu. You are the most survivable schools out there are large state schools that have diverse student bodies. And I'm not saying don't go to a partisan school, but if you're trying to build your career, when you go to school with people that look like you exactly up and down, it's just, you're not learning what you need to learn.
Yeah, that's got
so
makes sense.
Yeah.
Sense.
So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Right. I love talking to you. You're one of my favorite people. I'm like basically the same age, and you have a better pedigree, but it's really cool to see what you've done too. So
appreciate that. I will say, for those that end up watching this, they will be experiencing two of the quickest talkers together that will that might exist. But again, we are just wrapping up here with Jordan Lieberman, who owns Powers Interactive and has been an industry leader here for a number of years. So really appreciate your time, Jordan. And thanks for doing this.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun.
That brings us to the end of today's episode of The Future of Political Consulting. Our thanks to Raghu and Jordan for a thoughtful discussion on the structure of the political consulting industry, from growth and consolidation to careers, competition, and what comes next. For more insights from leaders across the political consulting world, listen to the Future of Political Consulting podcast library that you can find at theaapc.org. Thanks for listening.